Um, hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. We're going to kick things off here with some introductions for the three folks that we're going to be, or the two people that I'm going to be presenting with. So why don't we jump into the next slide and then we'll have Jim kick things off.
Hey everyone, I'm Jim Jessup. I am the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at CyberQP. Have a lot of hats in the company, focus a lot on the product side of things. Some people, when they hear me talk and hear all my dad jokes, think that I'm also the Chief Court Jester.
Nice. Joe?
Hi there, I'm Joe from Halo, one of our senior account executives here now. Started off in the support desk, transitioned into the client engagement team as one of the first technical sales engineers here at Halo, back when we had an office that was in a pub of about 30 people. Now we're almost hitting 200 at Halo, which is quite exciting. But my role is mainly taking an active role in presenting at trade shows and peer groups to large audiences of existing customers and prospects. As someone once told me, I have a face for radio and a voice for TV, or something along those lines.
Great. I'm Brian Milbeer. I'm the VP of Information Security and Compliance here at CyberQP. Been here for a few years. I help on the product side and also helping make sure that our product is secure. So like I said, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk a bit about how this partnership with Halo came about. And we're also going to jump in and talk about some frameworks that help you run your business and help provide assurance that you're secure. And we'll talk about, speaking of assurance, some cyber insurance topics as well. We want to keep this really interactive. So as we're going through, if you guys have questions, feel free to jump into the chat, ask away. We want to keep it as interactive as possible. So I'll start with a question. Let's see if we can get that chat warmed up a bit. Is there any frameworks that the folks in the audience are interested in? Is there anything that you folks have looked at for your businesses, or that your customers have asked you for that you're interested in?
The chat is live.
The chat is live. It's going crazy. I know some that we've seen in the past is that I've heard about is CMMC. There's a lot of folks that look at CIS because it's something that's actually more prescriptive on how to implement, which is valuable. Great. Yeah, AJ, thank you. Thank you for kicking it off. CMMC and SOC 2, that's great. Awesome. NIST, yep, and ISO, those are both good ones. ISO we see a lot in our friends over in Europe and in Asia, like the ISO compliance. So that's awesome. Thank you guys for jumping into the chat and keeping it interactive for us. So so as we jump in here, let's start off by Jim, could you talk a little bit about how this came about, right? Like, why is CyberQP partnering up with Halo for this integration?
Yeah, so kind of a bit of a history lesson. I mean, as some of our partners know, we've had integrations with some other PSAs, including ConnectWise and Datto for a while, to allow, people, MSPs, to use our functionality directly out of the PSA and log within the PSA all those actions they're doing, such as identity verification and end user account management. Now, fast forwarding a little bit in the future, most recently, obviously, Halo has been doing fantastic in the market as an independent company, et cetera. And a lot of our partners have been demanding Halo, and it almost came to the point where, we had pitchforks at our door for people looking for Halo integration. So we definitely saw a massive demand for that. So that was really kind of what initiated out. We went and reached out to Morgan, the product manager at Halo, and he was more than excited and accommodating for providing all the information for their API. So it was really a very easy process to kind of get joined up with Halo and get something going with them.
Awesome. Joe, do you how about you? Anything on the Halo side of things?
Yeah, I mean, just to chip in on the partnership side of things, I'm not sure if we might have lost the presentation for a second there. But as organizations between us, we are quite specialized in our own areas, our own fields, really, cybersecurity being you guys and us in the MSP PSA side of things. That specialization is nice. It gives the customers the option to have a selection of the tools they're looking to use in those verticals. Alongside that too, CyberQP are a great organization to work with. We're very like-minded with you. I see it specifically at trade shows, for example, where all the action is happening at CyberQP with the cheetahs and all the bullhorns and everything. We're very similar in that way. It's quite nice. As a result of us being like-minded, there's strong communication channels between the two. If there's ever an issue that jumps on either side, I've noticed both teams are quick to jump on any issues raised to kind of resolve it very quickly. We're very similar, is the point that I'm hitting on there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I hear the same thing from a lot of partners, both for us and for Halo, where they feel like they have a voice, right? Like we listen to what they're saying, we make changes to the product based on that feedback. And I know I hear the great feedback about the Halo partners.
Awesome.
Great. Well, let's jump into the next topic here. I think one of the areas a lot of folks are always interested in is kind of that compliance journey and in cyber insurance and how things have changed over the years. So Jim, if you don't mind, I know you used to own an MSP. If you could tell us kind of how you've seen that change and how things have progressed.
Yeah, so I owned an MSP from 2011 to 2019. For those of you who were in the industry around that time frame, you probably noticed that cyber insurance at the time was definitely a thing. It was becoming more and more important. But the one thing, at least initially on, was that the applications for them were quite easy to fill out and quite generic. The insurance companies just saw it as a way to collect money from another spot and add them on to company policies, etc. However, it was too easy to fill out, and so everybody could get it under the sun. And then obviously, ransomware has increased tenfold, year after year, and a lot of the insurance companies have been paying a lot of money. So as of late, that's definitely changed. So I would say it was definitely not as challenging as it was today, but it was kind of a precursor to what's been going on in the last few years for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I worked at a large insurer back in the day when cyber insurance first started coming around, and I was on their internal security team, and they had pulled me in to have a discussion about what to put in those questionnaires. And it was funny because a lot of it in the early days was they were like, not a lot of questions. We really want to make this super easy. Everyone apply, everybody get a policy. But like you said, once that ransomware started kicking up and they started writing checks, those questions and the scrutiny definitely increased quite a bit. Awesome. As we go through that, I know for a lot of these insurance questionnaires, they align to different frameworks, and there's a lot of frameworks out there that we're going to talk about a few of them on the webinar today. But outside of security frameworks, there's other frameworks that help you run your business. I know when I was looking through Halo, there's a lot in there around ITIL and helping you get and stay aligned to ITIL. Joe, do you want to jump in and we'll talk a bit about where you guys can help MSPs with their journey for ITIL?
Of course, yeah. I believe you were ITIL certified once upon a time, weren't you, Brian?
Yeah, back in the day,
Yeah.
I worked for a company and they had all like 1,000 people in the IT department become ITIL certified. So it was pretty interesting classes.
Well, with ITIL anyway, just to start off from the top, obviously information technology infrastructure library is a framework that of best practices that organizations will follow as almost like a benchmark of IT service delivery. Now, technically with ITIL, there is 8 processes, but most teams that I work with in the MSP space would typically tend to focus on the first 4. And as you can see, they're up here on the screen with incident management, problem management, change management, and requests for change as well. Now, ITIL's systematic approach will help businesses manage risks, strengthen customer relations, and build an IT environment geared for growth, scale, and change. ITIL is currently at V4 at the moment, or its fourth iteration, ITIL V4 as it's known. It achieved that in 2019. Before that, it was ITIL V3 back in 2007, and the list goes on back to the ITIL certifications that Brian had. It is, however, open to interpretation within Halo. Is ITIL Line V4 out of the box? You can amend this at your will within the UI. There's no kind of coding needed. A big reason that Halo is ITIL aligned V4 out of the box is actually linked to our roots with Halo PSA. So we actually started out as an ITSM toolset, gearing towards those internal IT teams, those enterprise teams looking to manage their service delivery. And from that, Halo PSA grew out as its own system. And obviously, a side effect of that is us being ITIL aligned V4 out of the box. Now, I'm going to cover some key points on these 4 ITIL processes here, just for you guys on the call to have a bit of an education from it. So to start off with here, we have the incident management process. So incident identification, you then log the incident in the system as a ticket, and you can add an approval process to tie that to ensure the ticket has been properly logged. The next stage here, after logging the ticket, you can see we have categorization. Now with ticket categorization, this is a very important stage within incident management. You can categorize the ticket according to your system. Within Halo, for example, there's 4 levels of categorization you can leverage if you wanted to. And following that, you would need to prioritize the incident based on that categorization. It could be linked to the customer that's logging the ticket, the impact, or the urgency of the incident as well. Following on from that, we can then run an initial diagnosis of the incident itself. So we can run through a standard troubleshooting question list. We can perform a thorough investigation of the ticket, develop maybe an initial hypothesis for the issue that you're logging, and determine how the issue needs to be escalated at the next stage. In Halo, we have a few pieces here for initial diagnosis. You can tie maybe knowledge-based articles to assets in the system, or used AI-powered classification to actually help investigate these tickets if you wanted to. Following on from this, you then have a support escalation. I can see Joseph in the chat is currently using AI to categorize tickets. Yes, you can do AI categorization of tickets within Halo if you wanted to. There's actually an active instance of it in the trials. If you wanted to download a free trial on our website, you can test the AI capabilities. Alongside that, just moving forwards past that, I digress, into the support escalation stage. Now, at this stage, you'd escalate the issue based on the categorization. You choose to escalate it on a functional purpose, so it could be linked to the category or the customer, or on a hierarchical purpose if it needs to be escalated to a second line or a management team in the system as well. After that, we then have the investigation stage where you'd set up a final diagnosis of the issue and determine that diagnosis and test your initial hypothesis for that as well. Following on from this, in the incident management area, we can then obviously run a resolution of that incident and tie an approval process to this if you wanted to ensure the issue has been resolved. That's a kind of run through of the incident process using the ITIL frameworks. Another piece we have linked to this, obviously, is problem management. Now, problems are overarching issues in the system that these multiple incidents can be linked to if you wanted to. So with problem detection, for example, you can bring that into the system via email or a text or a chatbot, for example. With that, you can enter your basic details into the problem itself and log it as a problem record. And the problem logging stage is the next piece. You can categorize the problem, prioritize it based on the impact and urgency, and you can even tie an approval process into this stage if you wanted to. Following on from this, we then have the investigation and diagnosis stage for the problem itself. So you can conduct a thorough investigation of the problem, enter an initial diagnosis of that problem, and create a known error record in the system for that problem as well for future use. In Halo, we have something called RCA, which is the root cause analysis of a problem to efficiently help you identify any issues that come moving forwards as well. Following on from that, we then have the temporary workaround stage. Now, this is a temporary stage just to fix the problem at a very short basis. So you build a short-term workaround at this stage and implement that temporary workaround with an approval process to ensure that it's ready for implementation. Following on from that, we have problem resolution, which is where you can describe the resolution of the problem, perform tests to confirm service recovery, and alongside that, implement the resolution following this after the approval of those tests being successful. Following on from that, we can close the problem off in the system, close any associated incident records, and ensure that you have classification details that are accurate at this stage. In Halo, we have some quite nice functionality linked to this. You can email affected users through a problem ticket if you wanted to, and you can also have problem tickets relate to services in Halo too if you wanted to. So if you had an overarching service that has a problem assigned to it, you can update that service from a ticket using a custom note if you'd like to. And just a question from Joseph in the middle there as well. I'm sure that relates to Halo. Halo does work with service level agreements as well. You can build SLAs into the system to relate them to customers, ticket types, whatever picks your fancy. Alongside that, the next stage here, we have change management. Now, with this in the system, you can create an RFC or a request for change in Halo to request that change happening in the system. So you'd set up an RFC record, for example, enter the contact details of the change owner. It creates an approval process for extra points if you wanted to at this stage for the RFC being completed, and then enter the contact details of the change manager in the system. Following on from that, we'd then evaluate. So we'd have the change evaluation stage. You can evaluate the benefits to IT services. Alongside that, evaluate the risks to IT services if you wanted to. Evaluate the extent of the disruption being made to business operations. Determine if a change evaluation report is necessary at this stage as well, if it's an overarching issue. Upload the change evaluation report into the system, and following that, determine remediation plans in case there was a failure moving forwards. Following that, we have change implementation. So you can build the change in coordination with any relevant teams. You can perform testing on the changes. You can notify the change manager of any test results that do happen as well. And following that, you can deploy this change in the system. Bonus points for those guys using maybe an approval process tied to that deployment as well. To finish off the change piece, we have a post-implementation review. So you'd set that up to conduct a PIR, which is obviously a post-implementation review, close any associated problems and known errors to that change as well. And also you can create knowledge-based articles in Halo, for example, to populate recommended fields when certain users log tickets relating to changes, just to speed that process up. And lastly, but not least, a very short process here is requests in the system. So with those requests, you'd bring a proposal in, you'd enter basic details to that request, you'd enter the change type you're requesting to make. These requests can push changes into the system if you wanted to, or request a change in the system at that change management stage. With those change proposals, you'd set them up in the system, detail the proposed change, you'd explain the reason for its implementation. You can set up a change evaluation stage at the next step to evaluate the business impact, which services will be affected, and propose a time and schedule for that implementation. Following on from that, we then have resource estimation, which is pretty important. You'd estimate the required, personnel resources, estimate the work effort required for these personnel resources, and upload any supporting documents relating to that as well. Following that, we have the submission for this request, or the RFC submission, we'd call it. You'd review any information in the proposal, set up an approval process to effectively push it in ready for permission. And following on from this, we'd upload the final RFC document and submit it to the change management team. Now, the reason I mention these four aspects of ITIL is because they're so important for efficiency. I mean, following these steps can transform the efficiency of your team and also naturally help promote growth for the organization as a whole. Now, a lot of MSPs aren't typically adopting ITIL as it is incredibly process driven. Normally, I would see the enterprise grade teams looking to lean on ITIL a bit more. For some of the smaller teams, it can feel like crossing a river with a battleship. Some of the kind of big benefits of establishing a clear and effective incident management process would be, for example, decreasing business and user downtime, reducing IT service costs, identifying, service improvement opportunities, and the big one for me is improving user satisfaction after you've demonstrated that high quality, service that you're offering to your customers.
Yeah, Joe, I know when I did it, one of the big things too is like, because you're tying a lot of this stuff back to services or assets, sometimes you start to see patterns that you normally wouldn't if you're just kind of battling day to day, right? Like, I'm sure your platform has a lot of good reports around this to kind of help people see with all this information you're collecting, where those pain points might be, where they're successful, where they might be falling down, wasting time, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And within Halo, the reporting suite is just a SQL query with SQL on the back end with Halo. So the database is active to any SQL queries you'd like to make. The more data, the better, really. I guess not the more problems, the better, but in the long run, you can work out those trends and kind of fix some diagnostics relating to them if you wanted to.
That's awesome. Great. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing all this. It looks really useful that all this is built in because, like you said, building these processes out yourself, the traditional ITIL way is challenging, right? So buying a platform where it's all kind of baked and you're just doing some configurations is a huge time saving to get you there quicker.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Which actually kind of feeds us right in, right? Like we were talking about the ITIL framework and how Halo helps you get there quicker and all that stuff's built in, and just implementing the tool in a thoughtful way gets you a lot of the way there for the ITIL framework. Same thing works for CyberQP. So with a lot of these different security control frameworks that are out there, there's a lot of controls that CyberQP can help you implement quickly just by implementing our product. And a lot of people, anyone who's not familiar with security frameworks, the biggest value in my mind of a security framework, outside of like it helping with if you want to get a compliance certification, or if you want to get sometimes different insurance or customers are going to ask for certain framework compliance. But outside of that, the biggest benefit for me when you're building a security program is it helps you take any bias that you have out of building your security program. We all tend to lean towards where we're comfortable. So if you're a desktop support person your whole life, right, and you're building a security program, you're gonna lean heavily on EDR tools and endpoint stuff. Whereas if you did networking forever, you're gonna be like, hey, I need strong firewalls and all this network monitoring and other things, right? And if you were an accountant, maybe you'll lean towards compliance frameworks. But what it does is it gives you kind of a map that makes sure you're covering all the different security disciplines and you're not leaving a weak point for someone to exploit. So here on the screen, we've got some of the areas that CyberQP can help you with right out of the gate, right? We do a lot around audit logging when you're using our privileged accounts, when you're rotating accounts, if you're using our password vault, even when you're with our integration with Halo or with then you can sit there and you can see in the ticket the changes, the identity verifications. Coming soon as we release more capabilities, you'll be able to see password resets that are taking place, that full audit trail. Hey, the identity was verified, the password was reset. All that gets logged in the ticket. We also keep those logs inside our product, which helps you adhere to these compliance frameworks and also helps you if you have something that you need to look into. Having a good process for granting and revoking access. I know we talked about some of the ITIL stuff. Some of those approval steps are important within a ticketing system. But where we can help too outside of your ticketing system is really making sure that you have a tight control around that privileged access, helping you do discovery of all the privileged accounts that you have out there in your customer's environment, cleaning them up. You'd be probably not surprised how many times we talk to partners and they install our product, they do a discovery. Hey, what domain admin accounts exist? What privileged accounts exist across this customer? And they find the last MSP that was supporting the customer's account is still floating around out there with the same password, or the original account that was set up when whoever set the thing up years ago is sitting there, right? So most people, when we talk to them, we're like, do you know all the privileged accounts that are in the environment? Most of them are like, I don't think so. So having this discovery and this process for removing the access, revoking access, using our just-in-time capabilities, so you're enabling privileged access only when that technician needs it to actually fix a machine, so it's not sitting there as a target for a threat actor to take advantage of. All those things are part of these CIS 6.1 and 6.2 controls around granting, revoking access, and controlling your access. And that kind of folds as well into those dormant accounts, using unique passwords. We can help with that password rotation, making sure that it's like a moving target for the attackers, right? Like if you're just using a shared account with the same password, the attacker only needs to breach one computer and they can get all your computers. So having that password rotate every day, using different passwords for different customers, using unique accounts per tech, those are all ways to reduce that attack surface, reduce the blast radius of of a compromised credential. And then we also have MFA built into that just-in-time process. The other piece too on those just-in-time accounts is their named accounts. So a lot of these, both cyber insurance and security frameworks, will require you to have a named account per tech. And that's for auditing purposes, that's for accountability. And there's lots of security reasons, right? You're doing a security investigation. You want to know, how did that thing happen? What happened? Having that named account in your audit logs is useful. It's a lot easier to have a named account in there than having some shared account or some checked out account, as a lot of people are using now, right? Like checking that account out of their password database, or using another software where like the just-in-time account is basically just giving them temporary access to a shared account. So so all those things are useful. They all help you with your CIS compliance journey. And then there's also the one that everyone always talks about, but nobody does, right? There's the account management piece, right? Where you're keeping that inventory of what exists out there, you know, knowing what accounts exist across everything is always a struggle, and we help make that easy just by, you know, installing our agents, tying in our enterprise app. We do that discovery and monitor those accounts as they get added to those privilege groups for you.
Some one point that related to the unique accounts for technicians versus shared accounts when it relates to kind of like cyber insurance and frameworks. One of the things that I kind of mentioned in the chat is that, you know, a lot of times cyber insurance today is all over the place. You know, one provider's asking one set of questions, another one's asking another. There are a lot of common themes, but they're asking things in different ways. But one of the couple of things that I'm kind of noticing as of late is that, you know, on one hand, they want you to be able to track, you know, have those unique tech accounts, but then on the other side, they say they want you to minimize the number of privileged accounts that you have, as well as having an inventory of all of them. So how do you get sort of the balance of the two? Well, the concept with the just-in-time accounts is that those accounts are named per tech, but they're actually only considered privileged when they're activated. So we go through the process of, you know, adding in the privilege as well as activating them when they're needed for a limited period of time. And when we're not, we remove the privilege as well as deactivating them. So then you kind of are able to tick the box of, okay, well, I'm minimizing the number of privileged accounts that I have, which in turn lowers your attack vector or minimizes it. But at the same time, I have that auditing and tracking capability to track who's using what and when. And when the technician leaves a company, you're able to just wipe out those accounts for that technician. And that doesn't impact anybody else in the company. Versus when you're only using a shared account, if a technician leaves your company, well, now you're having to worry about, okay, well, did they download all my credentials? Now I got to make sure that all those passwords are recycled immediately. And that can obviously have a big strain in the company, as well as you don't know who's using what when, because they're all sharing that one account.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jim. Another thing on the insurance side that kind of ties back to all this stuff with the just-in-time accounts and the discovery and everything is, and the privileged access management in general, is a lot of people don't look at all insurance the same, and they don't realize that a lot of this, it's more like homeowners insurance, right? Where you can still get insurance if you have a pool, if you have a trampoline, if you have these high risk things. It's just going to cost you more money, right? So like a lot of those questionnaires aren't to deny you the insurance. It's to let the insurance provider figure out how much they need to charge you. So when you sit there and if you have to list how many domain accounts you have and you go, oh, I've got 50, you know, I've got 50 domain admins out there, then that's going to drive up your premium. It's going to drive up the price you're paying because you're a higher risk to them when they look at underwriting that insurance policy. And same thing when you look at like homeowners insurance around like pools versus like pools with diving boards, pools without, right? Like it's that same type of concept with some of these guys where if you check certain things, you don't have privileged access management, maybe you're not using named accounts, whatever it is, there's certain questions where if you answer them the wrong way, they're just not going to underwrite you, right? So then you're limiting your options for insurance providers that you can use, which in turn kind of reduces that your ability to choose, and tends to drive up the cost as well, and the quality of the insurance that you can get. So there's that aspect of it that a lot of folks don't realize, that it's not a matter of can I get insurance or not. It's really what's driving that premium up versus making that more affordable for you to offer to yourself or for your customers.
Yeah, one good point on that as well, that's somewhat related, is kind of the issues that a lot of probably the people on the call are dealing with, and what we're seeing is with having situations with co-managed technicians. So it's great, you know, as an MSP or an IT service provider to have all these tools and controls in place. But if you're in a situation where you have co-managed IT technicians that are at your customers, and they don't necessarily have access to these tools and processes that you're using, well, then that doesn't necessarily, that leaves a huge gap in your security as well as your compliance, because you have maybe somebody on site who's, you know, not following these, you know, super secure practices, versus everybody in your MSP that is. So I know on our end in CyberQP, we can kind of speak to that, you know, we fully support co-managed technicians getting access to our platform and tools and restricting them just for that customer, and offering heavily discounted licenses for that, to allow MSPs to also resell that to those co-managed technician partners. And I think Joe had something to say on Halo related to that as well.
Yeah, of course, and we're fairly similar on the co-managed side of things. A big industry trend that we've seen over the last 3 years has been the move to co-manage, really. Now within Halo, you can nest your customer's service desk within your service desk in the system. It's incredibly malleable for that. And in relation to license pricing, yes, we offer a heavily discounted rate for co-managed licenses in comparison to those named licenses. MSPs can then resell those licenses at a higher rate to their customers' organizations to pull a bit more revenue out of them, alongside managing their tickets as a second line escalation. It's very valuable, and it's a massive industry trend that I'm seeing at the moment within the MSP area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it from a security perspective too, on both the Halo and the CyberQP side, because to Jim's point, you don't want to have like really great processes at your company and then have just like the wheels falling off on the co-managed side of things, right? Like having that unified approach always increases your security and makes a more uniform experience for your customers. That's awesome. Another thing too on the security side of things is, like, when we look at the CIS framework and security controls in general, is making sure your vendors are adhering to similar security controls. So, right. So like, I know on the Halo side, you guys do a lot of great things on the security side of things. And I know it's on the CyberQP side too, like we know how important what we're doing is with the privileged accounts. So we put a lot of time and effort into securing our platform and helping provide assurance to our partners that our platform's secure. So at CyberQP, we've got our trust center here, which we're showing on the screen. You can go to this at any time. We've got all these different controls listed. So you can see in real time that we're adhering to these different security controls. You can request our SOC 2 report. We've got our pen test summary reports up here. Any information that you would need to do a good third-party vendor review is listed on this trust center. You know, our sub-processors, all that stuff's listed there. So we try to make it as easy as possible for our partners to have an assurance that they can trust us with their information.
Of course. We have something fairly similar with Halo as well. On the security and compliance side of things, it's at halopsa.com/security. All of our kind of sets are on there, you know, Cyber Essentials certified, ISO 27001 compliant. You can imagine, as the data protection laws in Europe are incredibly strict, there's a lot of hoops we have to jump through in order to actually host the data out there as well. And there we go. There's the page just over here too. If anyone wants to check our compliancy, it is all on there available for you as well.
Yep, definitely something to look for in vendors, right? Like like back to the partnership thing, we talked about co-managed. We're covering this. There's so many areas where our two companies are similar. And I think a lot of it comes down to us trying to do the right thing for our partners and really trying to be a partner first organizations.
Cool.
Great. I think that kind of gets us close to the end of what we were looking to talk about today. let's try to jump into some Q&A here and see. I know there were some questions in the chat that we haven't covered yet. One of them, Jim, was there were some questions probably that you could cover best. People were wondering when's the rest of the integration coming with Halo, and what the latest status on that stuff is.
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that. So for those of you who have seen it so far, we initially released our end user identity verification directly with Halo through the integration, just so that we can get that in people's hands as soon as possible. We do have the rest of it, which previously was actually supposed to already be released, but one of the things that we value a lot at CyberQP is supporting our existing partner base. We did have some other issues with another integration on the IT Glue side that we've been attending to. And from our standpoint, we want to make sure that, we're also supporting and maintaining and making sure that everything that we have currently works up to everybody's standards. So it did sort of shortly derail the full release of the integration, but we will have the rest of that available in the October timeframe. So we definitely haven't forgotten about it, and it is a huge priority on that. But I just wanted to emphasize that for us, we want to make sure that, we're not just focusing on the new stuff. We want to make sure that we're, supporting our existing partner base. And if something comes up that's super important, we want to make sure that we address it right away so that it doesn't become a lingering problem. Because obviously, we want to make sure that we're a dependable partner on that. The other part that I wanted to kind of explain is sort of where we're going with the integration as well with Halo. So initially it's, matching what we have with our other PSAs. So the end user identity verification, the end user account management activities within the ticket, including resetting a password, sending a password reset link, unlocking an account, enabling and disabling an account, and seeing the status of the password expiry, all within the service ticket. Now, one of the things with Halo that some of you might have noticed, if you're Halo users, is that Halo does give quite a bit of real estate in those tabs that they have within the ticket that we were able to take advantage of. So what that does is it creates a lot of opportunities for newer things that we're going to be able to add after that, including us bringing our just-in-time accounts functionality within that as well. As well as going on and likely tying in our end user elevation, which we're going to be releasing initially in October through our dashboard and for end users, but also getting that in our Halo integration as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is a change that we're making with Halo to make things run better to how we've managed PSAs in the past, is related to the data flow. So a lot of our partners have pointed out that most of their contact data and their end user information, the source of truth is their PSA. So that's the way that we've designed our Halo integration, is so that we're recognizing Halo as a source of truth for that end user contact data. And then the data that we're holding effectively is just a cache of that data. And as well as when that data is updating, we update it in Halo and then just take a cache copy of that versus trying to, have some sort of a confusing thing or a two-way sync, because most of the time everybody's got that in Halo anyway. But yeah, that's kind of the updates going on, and I appreciate everybody's support and patience on that.
Yeah, that's great. Another thing to add too is, like, on my team, I have an offensive security pen tester. So like as we're doing these, like that Halo integration or any of the other stuff we're building, one of the things we take seriously is running that through security testing as we're releasing it to make sure that that your data and how it's interacting is secure. So that I like driving that kind of quality on our release is also sometimes can add to timelines. Great. I know another question that came up, Joe, that's probably more for you is Joseph Martin said, we are working on using AI to categorize the tickets. Can this be done with Halo?
Yeah, of course. I briefly touched on that when I was reading off my spiel on ITIL. But on the AI side of things, we can use AI to categorize tickets within Halo. Now we can integrate Azure OpenAI. ChatGPT is available as well, but we're not going to mention that for data protection purposes. But with Azure OpenAI, you can use it to actively read your ticketing database and look into those tickets and categorize it based on either previously matched tickets or alternatively the keywords within the ticket to categorize the ticket within Halo. Now, You can go one step further with that if you wanted to. You can use AI to categorize the tickets, suggest an estimated time for completion on that ticket based on what's found within there, and also to automatically assign it to an agent based on availability or the qualifications that match best to that agent as well. It's pretty nifty.
Yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like it would save a lot of time. I know like everybody tries to use the AI buzzword, but it's nice to see when you can actually like use it for something meaningful and it's not just like a support chatbot on the side where, you know, when you jump in.
We can do that as well, but I won't mention it.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got to actually like integrate it into the product, which is cool.
Mm.
Awesome. I know we still have some time. If are there any other questions folks want to throw into the chat, we're happy to keep going. Joseph wants to know if you can give an example of what the reports show, Joe.
Yeah, of course. Is that the AI generated reports? Or I suppose a good example, AI generated reports. Yeah, so we have built in AI generated report into the system. I might have to take this offline for you, I reckon, Joseph, because I'm going to struggle to produce one in the time that we have at the moment. But
Yeah,
within the
put on the
reporting
spot a
suite,
bit there. Yeah.
what I can do, I'll quickly share my screen. I have a trial open at the moment. We do have a live demo. Here we go. You're going to see the million tabs I've got open relating to CyberQP just over here because I absolutely love you guys. Now, within the report builder, a recent feature that we have released, if you guys can see, a monthly report on ticketing trends. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I can see.
No
That
worries.
sounds very nice.
So as you can see just over here, within these, you can edit these reports using SQL queries if you wanted to. Here's a new ticket month by month report for you, just because it will take a while for me to find a trends report. You can add category fields to these if you wanted to using SQL, as you can see within the data source just over here. But
Well,
with
I'm
these
not
custom
sure, Joe, that
oh,
we can see your screen on
oh, apologies. I've
there
been
we go.
showing you, imagine I've just been showing
Okay.
you the best demo you've ever seen.
We're just taking your word for
I could picture it in my head the whole time. I was
Oh,
like, it looks
I was
amazing.
I was painting a
I
picture
was
with
thinking the
words.
colors would be green though, but I guess blue's okay.
I'm ever so sorry. We can actually customize these if you wanted to. Let me quickly just edit this trial for you. I love doing things on the fly to cause some stress for the team. Let me just make it a green color like so. Just edit this for you. Now, oh, it's a terrible lime green. I'm ever so sorry. Now, with these reports in the system, as you can see, I have a new tickets month by month report available here, just showing you all the tickets that are logged on an overarching basis. We can edit these reports directly using a custom SQL query if you wanted to, or alternatively, you can use the AI query builder where you can write a query to return the summary and ID of all the tickets open this week based on category, things like that, if you wanted to as well. Obviously, it's something I'd like to take offline with you, Joseph, though. I'm happy to have a discussion on this or book in a session if need be as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine with the SQL capabilities, you can basically do anything, right? Like if you can write a query for it, you can write a report for it.
Absolutely, yeah. If the data is within Halo, it can be reported on, is the rule of thumb there. It's pretty powerful if you can write custom SQL queries in the system.
Looks like Joseph had one more question for you, Joe, while you were in there.
Yeah.
You said, oh, you got it?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I'd assume admin access would only apply to change the filter or filter the reports, correct? Yes. So admin access can allow you to access certain aspects of a report if you wanted to, specific reports in the system, or to even filter a report if you wanted to as well. And Cindy, +1 for Halo PSA, onboarded a few months ago and loving it. Thank you, Cindy. I believe I spoke to you directly, so it's great to see you again on the webinar. And thank you, Joseph, as well. I'm glad I could help with the questions there.
Joe, we love the questions too. Don't no need to say that that's it. You know, if you had more, that's great. Awesome. Yeah. So I mean, we covered a lot of ground here today. It was awesome doing the webinar with you, Joe. Really appreciate the partnership. Jim, Joe, great to jump on here and spend the time with both of you folks. I know we have, is there anything else we want to cover here? Are there any other questions? If not, I think we'll wrap it up and I know our last slide here that we've got is our call to action. So we do have 2 QR codes, which I have checked and they are safe, that you can use to either book a demo with CyberQP or you could use them to book a demo with Halo. So let's see if we can get those up on the screen here. Perfect. So if you scan either one of those codes or hopefully both of them, if you're not a partner of either of ours, then you can book a demo and skilled demonstrator will walk you through how the products work and how they'll help improve your business. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today. Hopefully you got some valuable information out of the webinar, and we really appreciate your time, Joe, and the partnership with Halo.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.